Okay. Good morning. This is the monthly Council on Aging Board meeting. My name is Shashi Menon. I'm sitting in for Louise, who's unable to come in here today. As always, the first order of business is to accept the minutes of the last meeting, but unfortunately the minutes are not ready yet. However, we do have the minutes of the last strategic plan workshop, and if anybody has any comments on that, we can move to accept those. I have a comment on that. On the second page, towards the end of the last sentence. Do you have a copy of that?
Yeah.
You will see the last, towards the end of the second page, it says, Kristen, add that for the last two steps, a library employee would be helpful. That sentence perhaps needs to be reworded in some way.
I know.
You see where I am?
Probably added is what.
I think it should say added.
Yeah.
That, comma, for the last two steps, a library employee would be helpful. Other than that minor change, anybody has any other questions?
I move we adopt them with that minor correction.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? Okay, it's passed. Now, before we move into the financial report, I'm suggesting that perhaps Pat and Cynthia would like to present your findings on the transportation meeting and talk about route match software. So, you have the floor.
Okay, are you gonna put it?
Yeah, so, would it be easier if they get up
You
here?
can walk up and stand next to it if you like.
Okay. Alright,
So let me pull that up.
I brought a couple of things, I'll leave that there. Can't bring anything with me. Okay.
And I tried to put the PowerPoint together, so if it doesn't match with what they're saying, I'll interject with what I was trying to accomplish here.
Okay, hello everyone, I'm Cynthia Willis, Transportation Coordinator, and I'm gonna go through the process that we go through at the beginning of taking a request at the front, at the receptionist desk or myself. So we get a call into the senior center. The first thing that happens, the receptionist will ask the rider their first and last name, their pickup address, normally it's the home address, the date of the appointment, the drop-off address. If they are going to a doctor's office, we can ask them for the doctor's name in case we come back looking for them. We can't find them. If we have a doctor's name, we can locate that passenger. We ask for their home or cell phone number, and then the receptionist will write down the date the appointment came in, the time, and who took it in case we need to go back. And also we use that information to track our stats. And also we'll ask if the rider is a ADA rider, which is American with Disability Act, and that is an application process to become approved through PBSI in Worcester. And we'll ask if they use any special needs as far as a wheelchair, a walker, cane, if they're gonna bring a PCA with them, that's somebody that comes along with them to help them. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to travel by themselves, and the PCA rides for free. If you bring a companion, that's like a friend, that person pays the same fare that you pay. And if they use oxygen or anything else. Okay, so that's all the pertinent information that we take from a rider for every trip that comes through the office.
And I'll just throw some questions at Cynthia and Pat that I know a lot of people ask when they want to know about our process. So the appointment time would seem like it's pretty straightforward. But we actually get a lot of questions on that because a lot of times, when a person gets the call for their pickup time, they'll say, well, that's too early, I'll be there 2 hours early. And we'll say, well, your appointment is, you told us your appointment was at 12 o'clock. And they said, oh no, my appointment's at 1, but I wanna be there by 12 o'clock. So we try to educate the riders, just tell us the appointment time. You know, we have, that built-in window that, you know, we'll talk about when we get further into the slides, that, having the actual appointment time is what we need from the people. So that sometimes gets confusing for folks, so.
Yeah, and that's very important, because when I go to put the schedule together, we never wanna make anybody late for an appointment, we always wanna get them there on time. And then the return time, we need that so that we can come back, I can schedule the person in to come back and get them. And we try to come back within an hour of what they requested. Okay, and normally it works that way. But just so you know, for ADA rider, we cannot have them on the vehicle longer than an hour. So during my scheduling process, if I find that they're gonna be on the vehicle longer than an hour, then I have to either put them on another vehicle or I have to send them to PBSI in Worcester, which they will find a ride for ADA passengers. But our non-ADA passengers, which is our regular riders, if we have to have them on the van for an hour or more, then that is acceptable. But, I mean, we try never to keep anybody on the van for an hour, you know. But sometimes it's out of.
What is the reason why you cannot keep them for more than an hour?
Well, with ADA passengers, because of their disability, they may not be able to sit, you know, on the van more than an hour without, you know, their disabilities, you know, causing.
Unable to do.
Right.
So,
Most of the guidelines that we have to follow under the laws are they came up with different averages nationwide.
okay.
So like that 3/4 of a mile buffer seems like a very strange measurement. Why isn't it half a mile, or why is it a mile? Why is it 3/4 of a mile? And apparently that's what they found was the average that people would walk to get to a bus stop. If a bus stop was more than 3/4 of a mile away, people would find another mode of transportation. So that's where that number came from. For the hour wait, apparently, you know, because this is supposed to mimic the big, you know, fixed bus route, people would rarely be on a bus more than an hour if they were to be traveling through the city on the fixed bus route.
I have a question. Do you have contingency backup plans for what should be done in the event of a accident, flat tire? I mean, you have to coordinate, you have to let the doctor's office know that somebody's going to miss an appointment?
Well, if a passenger was on a vehicle on their way to an appointment and that happened, the first thing would happen is that the driver would notify me, the base, and I would then call, if it's an RTA vehicle, I'd call the RTA. If it's the van that the town owned, I would call RAND. And then we would tell the passenger if they have a phone to call, or we would call, give us the number, and we would call the doctor's office. So in a situation like that, if you got a flat, you know, then 9 times out of 10 you may not be able to make that appointment, you know, with a flat, because it's going to take them time to come out to fix it and to continue on. And normally there's more than one person on a van, so, you know, one person might be going this way, one that way. It all depends who was the next person to get dropped off. Or another thing that we can do, and we have done, is that we would contact another driver to see if that driver can then, you know, meet where that driver has broke down, pick up that person and take them. Because that has happened in the past.
And again, that's allowable under the ADA, because again, that happens with fixed route too. Unfortunately, they'll have vehicle breakdowns and so on. Alright, so I'll let Cynthia go to the next slide here.
Okay. So, once we have the trip, the receptionist will give me or Pat, or sometimes Donna will help out the trip. And what we would then do is we would enter the trip in the route match trips module, okay? And the information, what we would do is pull up the client's name. We can pull them up by last name, pull them up by phone number. And there's other ways that we could pull them up, but that's the only two ways we use, is the phone number and the last name. We would pull that client's information up. We would enter in, their home address would automatically come up here, okay? But if they wanted to be picked up from somewhere different, like some people park their car here at the senior center, and we pick them up at the senior center, and like this person's going to UMass, so we would enter the UMass in. Now, we have a funding source here. A non-ADA rider, we would then click this button, put non-ADA. Now, we do have, like, for the Shrewsbury Housing Authority, their residents get a discount on the fare. The RTA fares went up a few years ago, and the Housing Authority did not want their residents to be affected by it, so they give us additional funds to cover that quarter increase. So for this one, it was non-ADA. Then because we're taking them to an appointment, it'd be a drop-off. If we were picking them up from somewhere else, like we could do one-way trips too. You get there, we bring you back, then that would be a pickup. But in this case, it's a drop-off. Then we put in the person's appointment time. Then down here, we put if the person has a cane, walker, wheelchair. But normally, when we go to enter a new customer in the database, if that person has a wheelchair, we put that wheelchair in so that each time we put in a trip for that customer, a wheelchair would come up if it was a person in a wheelchair. But sometimes people's circumstances change, and we don't know, and they tell the front desk, and if it's on the slip, we then change it here. Okay, so after putting in this information, now if they're gonna bring somebody with them, attendant or guest, we select that box. And like I said, the guest pays the same fare as the rider. If they need assistant needs, you click this box, and you would put the PCA there. And when I enter a trip, if we're taking a person there and we're bringing the person back, I would put RT for comments, round trip. Then I go up here and I save it. So then that trip is saved.
Just so you have the slides.
Okay. Then that trip is saved. So then now it's in the database. So,
I'll go to the next slide for the return.
okay.
Again, just kind of interjecting some questions. Sometimes, when we're showing a new person to use the system, they'll say, wow, so you have to do this for every trip? What if when you have somebody that works 5 days a week? I mean, you have to enter Monday, Tuesday, and the system thankfully has a mechanism for that.
And right here it says, make this trip a standard order. Okay, so a standard order is anybody, like say for instance we have a rider that's going to work 5 days a week, okay, same day, same time. So you would click that box, a standard order, and then it would make that trip a standard order. Then after that, after we save it, okay, then we have the option up here to make it says return, to make it a return trip. So for a standard order trip, on a return, you won't have to hit the return, because the system knows that because you took the person in their standard order, automatically their trip coming home will be standard order. So the only thing you have to do is put pick up and put the time and then save, and then that trip is saved.
Cynthia, question?
Yes.
How much and when do they pay?
We have non-ADA, a non-ADA person in Shrewsbury. If you're going from Shrewsbury to Shrewsbury, would be $150. If you're going from Shrewsbury to Worcester, which is one town away, it would be $175. If you go in the opposite direction, which is if you're going to Westboro, which is 2 towns away, then it would be $2 one way. If you go to Northborough, which is one town away, like Worcester is, it would be $1.75.
And when do they make the payment? And what
They
way?
make the payment when they get on the van. Some people, when they get on the van, they give it to the driver, or other people, they get seated and then they give it to the driver. Some people like to pay the whole fare because they know they're going and coming. Some people are different. They want to pay one way and then on the way coming back, they pay the other way. So whatever the passenger is comfortable with.
And the drivers work it out, if they, if one driver got the whole fare, and Pat, you know, can speak to that, being with her driver experience.
Well, occasionally, will not come home with the same van driver that they went in with. So, and each van driver has to account for their monies at the end of the day. So, usually the passenger will say, do I have you round trip? And if you say yes, they'll usually pay you for both. If not, I only have you one way, then they'll turn around and they'll give you for that one trip, because they know they're gonna have to pay the other driver anyway. So that's how we keep our system of checks and balances. Occasionally, which makes it very difficult for us, is that we don't carry change. And so, and we know it's difficult for some of these people to get the proper change. If you can, it helps. If you don't, we'll do the best that we can to make change, even if it's out of our own pockets, to try to help you to get that change. But a lot of times they show up with $10 and $20 bills, first trips, and we just can't do it. So either write a slip, like an IOU, just in case they forget. They can make it up for the next time around, which will probably come up later. Or they can pick it up with the driver as they're coming back, because that driver may have the change, or they may have the opportunity to make change. So we accommodate the people as much as we can.
Okay, and you mentioned how do they pay? They have two options, well really three options depending on the person. We accept cash, and we also sell tickets, okay? These are tickets that we got from the WRTA, okay? We have a small book that costs $4.50, and there's 20 tickets in the book, and these tickets they're like in 25-cent increments. So if you're gonna go to in town, it'll be $1.50. So you do a one whole row, and then you bend that in half and tear it off, and you give the driver $1.50. So if you can see this, they're in 25 cents, so you give $1.50. Now, at the end of using this $4.50 booklet, you save 50 cents, okay? Then we have the bigger booklet, and this is for people that don't ride that often, okay? Then we have the bigger books, which cost $18. It's 80 tickets in here. At the end of using these tickets, you end up saving $2. So if you have 4 books of the small ones, it equals the same as this. So it depends on, what the rider want or what they can afford at the time. Okay, so they get the smaller book or the bigger book. And the other thing we do, we've had people that travel in the van that may have dementia or, problems handling money. We make arrangements with the family, and the family will give us a check once a month. And these are normally somebody that's going to be a regular rider. The family would give us a check once a month to cover all their fares. So that person we would call a prepaid fare. Okay, and we only have a handful of people like that. Okay, so we try to work with people, depending on their situation.
And just to clear up, apparently I misspoke last month, and we had some calls regarding the tickets with people in a panic. Last month I explained that the Worcester Regional Transit Authority did away with these tickets, and now folks have to use kind of like the Charlie card system. So they've allowed us to just take all their excess tickets. Apparently people misunderstood, or I misspoke, and said that we were doing away with the tickets as well. That's not the case. We'll be using these until they run out, and then if we still want to continue using them, we can always reprint our own. But we don't plan on doing away with the system anytime soon, because we find it works very well. And as Pat said, you know, it's much easier for the drivers and the riders to not have to be dealing with cash.
Okay, once all of the trips are entered into the system, what I do, 1 to 2 days prior to the trip happening, I go in and I start working on a schedule. Okay, so people that ride, we have some people which are on a weekly standard trip. Every week, in and out, they go into the same place. You know, usually it's people that go to work, or go to dialysis, or have a regular scheduled appointments. To prevent those people from having to call every week, we do them as a standing order. So anybody that's in a standing order, when I go to do the schedule, they're gonna automatically show up here, because I've set it up in the system so that those people are already scheduled to a van and on the schedule. Now, on this side is the unscheduled people, people that didn't have a regular trip, so their trips automatically come here. It's broken up by towns. It's Worcester, Shrewsbury, Northborough on this one, and then Westboro. Now, so what I have to do, what I've been doing, I've been manually doing the schedule, but the system has the capability of doing an optimization. Optimization means that once I get all the trips in and I come to the schedule, and there's a link up here that I press here, and it says optimization. It will come down. I press optimization, and then what happens with the optimization is like the system puts all the trips in together, and it starts rotating it, and, you know, trying to figure out, well, what bus should it go on. So it's pretty cool. And like I'm saying, like 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes max, the system will do the schedule. Now the system is supposed to be set up where it does about 85% of the schedule, where I only should have to do 15% of the schedule. But because of the way that the system was set up, I don't know if it has something to do with the maps, it's not working properly. It has never worked properly. And
I've given them some examples, like, you know, getting to Fairlawn Rehab in, you know, 20 minutes, and getting to UMass in 2 minutes. So I've given them some examples of what it automatically populates that you then have to go in and manually override.
Right, so basically what it is that it's the settings. The settings are off, okay? The mapping is off. Okay, that's not something that, you know, I'm trained to do. That's something that Route Match has to do, okay? But when we originally set up this Route Match, we did all of our training through like a webinar, you know, through a computer. We never had them come out here, which was very challenging, okay? But we did the best we could at the time.
Question, Cynthia. Since you've had this problem for quite some time, have you brought this up at your meetings?
Yes, matter of fact.
And what did they have to say about it?
Well, matter of fact, the last training, every time I go to the training, I sit down with a consultant, and I go there with an agenda, letting them know the issues that I'm having. Because I find that when I deal with them face to face, I'm more likely to get something, you know, corrected versus when you call on the phone. You know, so yeah, I like the last meeting, the last training we went to, me, Pat, and Sharon. Okay, I set it up where we were on a conference call with one of Route Match top workers, where we brought us all together. We told the guy what the issues are, and we explained to him that, you know, we needed him to make a commitment to us, you know, because it's been going on for too long, that we needed him to make a commitment to us that he would help us to resolve these issues so that the system can finally work the way it's supposed to work. Okay, so if you want to
And
go there.
we'll get into that next, because of course, they're more than willing to help, but for a fee. So we'll get into that too. The next slide that I wasn't able to fix for you, that you might just want to work off of this one, was how you adjust the times. because again, we blurred the information, so there wouldn't be any identifying information here. But all the times on the left-hand side of the screen are, again, the people's appointment times. So, you know, Pat could tell you, as a driver, you definitely don't want to be in two different places at the same time. So, you know, we'd have people with 11 o'clock appointment times, 10 o'clock appointment times. So right now, these times are all in chronological order. And again, Cynthia has to go in and adjust those, because obviously the bus can't be, you know, multiple places at the same time.
So just to quickly get back to this, so I have not been using the optimization because it does not work. Because when I use the optimization, it tells me that, and Route Match has told us that we're trying to do too much with too little, you know. But because I've been doing the scheduling for over 20 years, I know what we can do. Okay, so what I've been doing is manually doing the schedule, which has been taking 4 to 5 hours a day. Almost, you know, more than half of my day is spent on doing the schedule, which it should not be. And that was the purpose of us buying the software, so it could free up my time, so I have more time to do other things, like file some papers away. So anyway, so what I've been doing, I pulled trips from here, and I put, if I got Shrewsbury trips, I look at them and I throw them on the Shrewsbury bus. I got Worcester trips, I throw them on the Worcester bus. And once I get the trips over, okay, I don't bring them all over, then I start figuring out, okay, who has to be there first. So I'm taking the first group in, and then we come back, and then we take a second group in, and if anybody's ready, once we drop off that second group, we then bring them back. So it's a long, dragged out process, you know, and manually doing the schedule. It's a lot of work that goes into, because for each person that we pick up, they have 4 stops. You pick them up from their home, you drop them off at their appointment, you come back to the appointment, and you drop them back off home. So each person we pick up is 4 stops, so there's a lot involved. Okay, so to move right along, once the schedule is put together, okay, I then go into my reporting module, and I print out a schedule. Okay, and I'm printing out a schedule for 3 buses. Okay, so this right here, the COA 98, this is the van that the town owns. Okay, and this van primarily works as a backup to the Worcester and the Shrewsbury van, and this van does Westboro and Northboro trips. So this is the van that does those. So basically what I do, and this manifest right here, there's 2 different manifests that we can print, but we are printing this one because we find this one to work easier for the drivers. Okay, so once I print it up, I then highlight it, okay, where the, so that I get it ready for the receptionist, so that then they make the calls to the riders. Okay, and as you can see, like, this is the pickup time, 8:30, 9, 9:20, and all of these people, these are their pickup times. So I only highlight the pickup times. The return times are not highlighted. So I do that on all 3 trips. Now, if I find trips that won't fit onto the schedule, the next thing I do is that I've broken them out. We have 2 different agencies that we use. We use PBSI in Worcester, which handles the ADA riders that we can't handle, okay? And Yellow Cab. We have a community grant through Mass DOT that we have funds from that. We have like a contract with Yellow Cab to handle the people that are ADA that can't fit in, well, I wouldn't say ADA, non-ADA. Basically we have an expansion grant, so any of the riders that can't fit onto the van, we then get them Yellow Cab. And any ADA riders that can't get a ride, like on a holiday, on a Sunday, if they work on Sundays, they're entitled to 5 yellow cabs per month, all the ADA people, okay? Because that helps when PBSI is not running. Because PBSI, they start, let's see, Monday through Friday, I'm gonna say around 5:30 in the morning to about 8:30 at night, okay? And then on Saturdays, they start about, I think it's about 12 o'clock, 12:05 to about 5:30. There's no service on Sunday. So you do have a few people that work at some of the stores like Wegmans or, you know, one of the other stores, Stop and Shop, that need to get to work on like off holidays that the town might be closed, but it's not like a major holiday, so those people still gotta get to work. So those ADA people we can put on yellow cab.
And again, that mimics the fixed bus route, that's why it has the start and end times that it does. It, again, mimics whatever the fixed bus route times are.
Is the funding for the two different, or is the funding the same?
For the ADA trips, that's covered under the Worcester Regional Transit Authority's funding. So if somebody, and that also goes outside of what we call our service area. So we're just running to and from Worcester and then, you know, Northborough and Westborough. But the ADA service area, people can go to Millbury, to Auburn. So we don't want to tie up the vans going to those locations. We can just broker that out. So that's covered under their budget. But the yellow cab stuff, that's through that DOT grant that we get to help provide an expansion service to places that, again, the RTA doesn't go there. So we're trying to help provide people opportunities to go to work and to medical appointments above and beyond what the RTA can provide. So the Department of Transportation is just trying to meet the needs of the community. Where do people need to go, and how can we provide that outside of what the RTA buses are doing. So these next few slides go over what is needed with you know, where the gaps are in the current route match system, and what you know, has been identified with Cynthia, the drivers, you know, Pat, Donna, Miranda previously, with what they really see as the 4 top needs right now in looking at, you know, the strategic planning things in regard to transportation on the operational end. So these are the top 4 things that they've identified.
Okay, let's see, in the reporting module,
Oh, let me jump, Cynthia's already talked about optimization, so let me jump ahead to the next slide.
okay, in the reporting module, there's like 4, 5 different reports that's due every month. One is for the WRTA. They usually want theirs by the 15th of the month. Mass DOT, I've given them theirs. I try to give them theirs quarterly. And then also Shrewsbury Housing Authority wants a report, and also the department stats, which the board, you know, now wants a report. And then riders, I get calls from their families that they then want to report as to how much money they spent for the year. Okay, usually they get some kind of reimbursement from Social Security or somewhere, or the housing authority where they live. You know, so I provide a letter for them. Okay, so there's quite a few reports that is expected, but all the reports are different. Okay, so
Pat, I don't know if you want to grab all the data just to show everybody what goes into, this is just last month's data.
So basically everybody wants different reports. Okay, Route Match has the capability, but it's not set up where I should be able to go in, you know, press a couple of buttons and ask for, you know, these numbers. But because the program is not set up properly, I then have to, I sit down with Carmela about twice or maybe 3 times a month. Maybe we spend about an hour, hour and a half each time. And we put the numbers together. I use an Excel spreadsheet. So basically, I'm going through, hold it for a minute. I'm going through each and every schedule. Okay, you see these schedules? Each and every schedule I'm going through, looking to see, okay, so who's under 60, who used a cane, who used a walker, who's in a wheelchair. So I go through this, I give her the numbers, and then she puts it in this spreadsheet, this Excel spreadsheet. So once a month, I have to do this for each fan, which is very time consuming. And that's for that. For the DOT, okay, I have to basically do the same thing, because I have to then go through the schedule and figure out, well, what trips did I do on each bus that follows the guidelines of what a community grant trip is, you know. So I have to go through and do that. So me and Pat, we've been doing that. So I get with Pat, and we spend, what about
10, 15 hours over the last.
basically, it's very time consuming, okay, but like I said, Route Match software has the capability of doing these reports, but it was never set up for us, okay, and having them do it, trying to explain to them what we're looking for over the phone hasn't worked, okay, so what's really needed is for them to come out and set this system up properly. You know, we paid a lot of money for this system, and the system has the capability. I know it has the capabilities, okay, but again, I can't set it up. They have to set it up. You know, so we have this problem with the reports we need. We have this problem with the verification. The verification is a process that is a piece that Miranda used to handle, okay? And when we was trained, only we all took different, aspects of the software. We were all in charge of different aspects. And so when Miranda left with the verifications, the verifications haven't been done since mid-December, so we're like 6 months behind with that. But if we were to bring in the tablets that we purchased a couple of years ago that are still not on the van, because when they gave us the training in the beginning for the tablets, just learning Route Match was a very overwhelming process, because none of us knew anything about it. Okay, and then I know Sharon went out sick, and we never got the tablets up and going. Okay, but like I said again, we have these tablets. The tablets would take the place of the paper. So instead of using the paper for the drivers on the bus, these tablets would work. So the driver, this right here, I have pulled up one of the driver's schedule. It's the in-town van. So his whole schedule, if you want to pass it around and just look at it, his whole schedule is on that tablet. So basically what happens with that tablet is that he gets there, okay, he gets to the stop, and then he presses the button saying that he arrived. Okay, and then once the person get on the bus, get seated and buckle, he presses it saying he's gonna leave, and then he's on to his next stop. Okay, the tablets would, and if he got there and somebody no-showed, meaning that they never called to cancel, we don't know where they at, that's a no-show. Okay, or they end up canceling the trip. Either we told them from the office that he canceled, or we got there and learned that the person canceled. The tablet, he would hit a button on the tablet and it would be already done. For the verification process with the tablets and reporting, it would be more accurate using the tablets versus using the paper. Okay.
And the tablets, what Cynthia was explaining is they would be able to take that data, because they're clicking when they arrive, that helps generate real-time data. So the system would then start to understand that it takes 45 minutes to get to Fairlawn because they're checking when they arrive at that destination. And the software is supposed to be intuitive, so it would start seeing, geez, every time we go to this Fairlawn location, it's taking 45 minutes because the driver doesn't have to document, it took me 45 minutes to get here. Because they're clicking when they arrive at that destination, it starts to understand, just like when you utilize a GPS or whatever, it starts to store that data and understand that
Right.
certain locations take longer to get to.
So would
So
they
what's
automatically feed that information to Route Match?
Yeah, because it's a web-based system, so that would all go back.
So what is
To the
holding us
web.
up on using the tablets?
More training with the drivers, again, having, the staff understand the data that we're used to getting out of the, desktop, system, how to extrapolate that data on here, and again, starting to get rid of all the paper data. The big thing is we wanna make sure that we can get all the reporting that we need. Obviously, we have a lot of backup data here to fall back on. We'll be relying strictly on,
So we are starting to use it.
after the last, well, I'll let folks jump in. I don't wanna steal your thunder, it's exciting.
No, that's okay. Actually, we're looking forward to using the tablets for one particular reason. It's going to simplify the system for us, and as Sharon said, the data is going to be all in one place. We can look at it, we can adjust it right from, it's almost like the police department where it's a live dispatch. You can go in and you can make changes immediately instead of like using like a radio, hi, this lady's not here, can you call? The driver can go right on the tablet, give us a notice, this lady's not coming out, can you give her a call? It's a little bit quicker, it's a little bit more fine-tuned. The tablets right now, we need training, I need training on how to use that particular tablet and the system. The other drivers do as well, which is, they're not difficult, it's just a matter of getting familiar with the unit itself.
Who provides the training?
Well, that's just it, Route Match does. And again, this is where, what we'll be getting into in a few minutes, is why it's important to have them come back out.
Well, they've never come out.
Right.
We've all done like webinar training.
Which is fine, but you don't have that one-on-one, because they're on a time frame on these webinars. It helps you get an idea, because I'm still getting familiar with the system itself. I get the idea of what I'm supposed to do, but that one-on-one sitting down with the consultant, which was something that at the conference was something that was available, and I can't tell you how many people were taking advantage of that. I've never seen that at any kind of conference where you can grab a consultant and sit down and take as much time as you need to work out the problems, which is why it was hard to get in there, because everybody was doing the same thing.
Excuse me,
And, yeah,
it's
Joshie?
almost 10 o'clock, it's after
Yeah.
10, and Kristen is going to be here shortly.
Yeah.
So, if you have a whole lot more to present, I would wrap things up if you can.
Okay.
Well,
If
I'll-
there's just one thing I'd like to
Summarize
add
it?
before
Yeah, go ahead.
all of this, this program is the Route Match system itself, and I've talked to other different agencies when I was working in the police department, what kind of system they use. This records trips made by the clients, it dates and times the trips, it gives the mileage, the fees, the needs of the client itself, the fuel usage. It also has an avenue on here which is very important in some circumstances where we have a commentary, where if we have a problem with a particular client at that time, the driver can go on, make an immediate commentary, like we had an abusive client, or we ran into this kind of problem, it's already documented, so that when we can follow up on it, we can see the driver's having a problem, and monitor that while they're completing their trip, and support the driver. And I think that's very important, because as time goes on and we're dealing with more and more varied clients, that's gonna be, to me, that's gonna be a very important issue.
So
And I'd
in a
like,
nutshell,
yeah,
if I were to summarize for you rather quickly,
yeah, go ahead.
my takeaways from what you've said so far, you've got a system, route match system, which has got a whole lot of capabilities.
Yes, it does.
Unfortunately, we're not taking advantage of them. your process that you have now has become very labor intensive.
Mhm.
Yep.
It should not be that way.
Right.
Correct.
You need a lot of training, you
Yeah.
need consultation, you need people here, but if it takes more money to get you guys trained and the software updated and all that kind of stuff, that might actually be cheaper
Yes,
than the amount of time you guys are spending. Maybe it's time that this problem was moved up a level to the management of the town of Shrewsbury, and bring it up to that level to understand, instead of just piecemeal, you know, we do this by hand because this doesn't work, we do this by hand, we have to, I mean, what you just said
Yeah.
for is monumental, the amount of
Yeah.
work you have to do, 4 or 5 hours each time. That's not right.
exactly.
I think that we need to define the problem, we should go and raise the level, make it visible at a higher level, maybe at the selectman level, I don't know.
This is a great
And then-
program and it's in place, and the thing that's there,
But
it's not like you
it's no
have,
good unless you can
Yeah.
use it.
it's not like you have to
Right.
Exactly.
repurchase it. It has the capabilities
You
and
need
they can
support
change it for us.
and you need training.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're not going to get it by occasionally making a few phone calls. We've got to have a look at it top down, all the problems, and let's go from there.
I'm sure the needs of the town were not the same as when the purchase of this program was made.
But
It
that
has
is
changed.
true of any system we buy.
Which
We
is
buy
what's
computers and the software gets updated.
Yeah.
The town updates it.
Yeah.
Should be the same approach.
That's what's great about this program, is they can do that at that level without having to
Exactly.
purchase.
So it looks as though the system has got a lot of capabilities.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're not in a position to take advantage of it.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so there's 4 things, I'll say it real quick and then we'll be done. That's up here that what we need, to have Route Rash to come back out here, for 3 days, to do the adjustments that are needed with the mapping system and the settings, okay? The optimization, so that I'm not spending most of my day doing the schedules, okay? I'm spending maybe a couple of hours, okay, a day, and it can free me up to do other things. And then far as creating the report templates that we need for different reports. Okay, the next thing is getting the training that we need for the drivers and the staff, okay? We did have some basic training in the beginning, but that was years ago, and we never put the tablets into play. So the tablet training is something that we really need, and then the verifications. And like I said, we had a conference call while we was down there in Atlanta, and we sat down and we got some prices. But you know, Sharon's hoping to be able to negotiate that maybe we can try to get the prices down a little bit more. We're a smaller agency. We're not one of the big agencies they have out there. You know,
The MBTA recently
Yeah.
started, they switched over to Route Match, so that's their big client in New England right now is the MBTA. So obviously, you know, we're hoping, well, if you can come out to Boston, can you swing by Shrewsbury and knock down some of the price?
One other thing that occurred to me as you were talking, are the amount of time you spent generating reports. But here's the thing, that all the data is in it's in a database. There's no reason why those agencies that need these reports cannot generate them directly by querying the Access database. They should be able to generate it. Would you agree?
those agencies.
Oh, the RT, you mean like you?
You know, you have all those people that you're giving those reports to.
Yeah.
Should have access to the database. They should be able to query the database, get the information, instead of you having to put it together for them.
You know, that it's just the way that, because you're
I
getting
understand the
grant
way it is now.
funding, you're required to send it to them. If you wanna get your money, you send it to them.
I understand that,
Yeah.
but perhaps for a longer term, that's something that needs to be looked into.
Okay.
Because the amount of time you're generating is too much.
Yeah, but basically, in a nutshell, it should not be taking this long, okay? We've already done the work, it's in the system. The only part that we're not up to date with right now is the verification training, the verification part of it. But once you verify that the work did happen, okay, you should be able to go in and pull reports. I mean, I am able to go in and pull some information, okay, but not everything can I pull out of it.
See,
You know,
it seems like a catch-22 situation. The software is not working correctly. And it's got features that you are not using.
right,
So you are not using them because they're not trained, you're not trained in using all these things.
I'm not
But it's,
trained
the training is meaningless unless everything is working correctly.
and it's not set up. It has to be set
Exactly.
up properly.
The setup and the training is
Yeah.
part of what they
Yeah.
should be doing.
Yeah, so,
Go ahead.
Have you told, Sharon, have you told the town manager about this?
He's aware that there's a lot of tweaking that we need to do with Route Match.
But is he really aware of what's going on?
I think they need to see this presentation.
Right.
Yeah, we could do that, just so everybody's brought up to speed.
How was the software funded in the first place? Where did the money come from to do that?
It was a mixture of things. We paid for it out of the revolving fund, the formula, and line items in our own budget for subscription fees. Similar to right now, we just have a monthly subscription fee of it's $237 a month, and that's paid out of our subscription line item that we pay for my senior son out of the mailing software out of. So right now, the quote that Cynthia and Pat were able to get when they were down in Atlanta is that to do what we're asking for would cost, Route Match is saying that the cost to us would be $3,500 if they were to do all of these things remotely, or for an additional $1,500 they can come out and be on site for 3 days.
So we're looking at 5,000.
Right.
I still maintain that that approach is cut and paste, piecemeal solution. I think we need to look at it from the top. This may fix some problems, but it won't make the problem go away. Because next time you need somebody, you gotta get the consultant in. We gotta looked at it from the bottom up, look at all the issues, find out what needs to be done.
well, those are the issues that, as a staff working on
It
it.
has to be raised to another
Okay.
level. The
Those are-
visibility has to be raised.
Right.
The reason that I asked about where it was funded from is that it seems to me if we've put together, as a board or as an agency, put together the funding, we have no place to kick it up to. If we need service, we've got to figure out where we can find the money to do it.
Yeah,
The
that's
town
true.
manager isn't going to fund something he didn't, or his office didn't have something to do with in the first place. I would think, I mean, that's just my assumption, but.
I mean, this is one of the most important things that going on in this building, I would think. Because most of the people who need these services are not the people who come to the center regularly for the activities.
Susan, a comment?
Susan?
I'm Susan Shaw, and I had said I wouldn't participate, and I thought that Shashi was going to get where I was thinking, but I take this back to a practical level and from my own experience. I'm not any kind of a computer whiz whatsoever, but it seems to me that on the part of reporting, or having reports, are we asking for the right thing, or are you asking for the right thing? In that, it seems that all of the data that we look for is in there, as Shashi said, there's a database. What our problem is changing that data into information, which would then be those reports. Well, long term, there's any number of different kinds of reports that we want. So to me, it's not, do you need a template? It's, do you need to know how to query, how to ask the database for the information that you need? And you set up, but we, or you, need to learn that part of it so that, teach a man to fish. It's not that, for someone who knows how to do it, it's not that complex to go and do a query. And that's part of what you pay for. But do you want to wind up paying every time you want a different kind of report, or you need something, to pay for somebody else to do it? when you can have the facility of knowing how to use the software to get the data into form that can be used as information. That's
Well, the reports that are needed are the same reports that have been required, you know, for the RTAs the last 20 years, so nothing's changed, you know. The Mass DOT, we've been getting grants for them for over 5 years, the same type of report. It's just that it's just not set up properly.
Well, I think like Shashi said,
That is the root of
they
the
kind of
problem.
go together, I think those are good suggestions.
Okay, so hopefully we give you guys a lot of food for thought and we can look for your support.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Book a
Thank you
trip-
very much.
Book a trip every now and then.
And that was one of Pat's suggestions. Pat was like,
Said,
maybe if every board member took a ride. And
took a trip, booked a trip to see what we're dealing with and how the buses operate. It'll give you a great understanding of the system.
And a good point of view to then bring back.
I
Yeah.
think you're right.
Very good.
All right, well, thank you for listening
Thank
to
you.
us.
Okay, are you
Well,
going?
moving right along, Kristen is here. And unless, we are not actually going to review this document, the strategic plan. I think everyone has reviewed it, right?
Yes, I have not received any
4,000
other
times.
feedback.
I'm sorry?
I have not received any other feedback since
No,
I
I don't think
submitted
we
the
do. I
drafts.
think it's a good document. I think we're good to go. And should we just vote on it? Is there anybody else who has to, do you have something else you want to tell us?
No, I just would like to thank the board and the staff of their great participation over the past 2.5 years on the strategic plan. I think that it sets us up for very good next 5 years to work on this and elaborate on it, and allows us to present to various parties what our goals are and be a unified front in terms of both the board and the staff. So I thank everybody's participation in the process. I know it was a lot of effort and work.
Question is the methodology for continuing with the work plans and the what the other thing, the marketing plans. Are you going to, is that what happens next?
That's what happens next.
And are we involved in that part
Of
of it?
course, yes.
Not directly, but you're going to get a meeting with the library people?
So
with
I think
experience?
the first step is that Sharon and I will have a conversation of how we think that it would be best to move forward. We think that it would be very effective to have the library director and perhaps a trustee member come in and give a presentation to you, just as an example of how they are working through their strategic plan and moving that forward, and then laying out a roadmap for the board and the staff on how to proceed forward.
Okay, so unless anybody has any objections, comments, questions, well, somebody can.
I will move that we adopt.
You may move.
We adopt the report in its final form.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? There you go.
Congratulations.
Congratulations to you.
So we will put this on your website, we'll request a meeting with the Board of Selectmen so you can formally present it to the Board of Selectmen. That'll be a huge step, and then move it forward with you, so. Great.
Thank you.
Alright, good, no, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. You're welcome to stay and participate in the rest
Is there anything else you need from me in terms of the agenda?
We just had Cynthia and Pat present on transportation and 4 things that they've identified that they feel are strategic in nature. So I think that's probably a very good example of like the individual work plans as far as like transportation related. I think hopefully that gave you a good feel of the various things that they're hoping to work on, and again, like fleshing it out in a work plan, going to, meeting with the town manager, doing a presentation. So I think that hopefully illustrates, the types of things that they're hoping to tie all their work into our strategic planning efforts.
But in general, for their coming here to present it, I think all of us got a much better idea of what we're up against here. We have this very complex piece of software with all kinds of capabilities that we're not taking advantage of it because we've never been trained and they're not providing the support we need. Every time she says she goes to a conference, you sit down, talk to somebody, get some help. But that's no way to do it.
Yeah, I think the problem is, we had been assuming there were defects in the software. The reality is, we only did half the bit. We bought the software and never bought the necessary support to set it up,
Fine-tune it.
install it properly, train the people that are going to use it. And so now we're struggling to use something that has all the capabilities there. The fact, you know, we kept talking about the fact that it's giving wrong distances for trips. Well, once these tablets are put into use, the system will self-correct.
Yes,
But
yeah.
we're not using it all, so that we only did half the job in the first place. We gotta do the other half.
And I think that's a huge benefit that you can use the strategic plan for, is you work for the next 4 or 5 months, lay out what you need, and then when you're at the finance committee in February, or when Sharon's meeting with myself and the town manager in December, we have laid out this plan, we are requesting X amount of dollars to continue our route match program to enhance the services in X, Y, and Z, and this is our plan moving forward. We can prove that it will work. So I think using the strategic plan as a launching point is extremely
Yes, and
valuable.
management ought to see that presentation, if that can be arranged.
Yep.
You know, the one that Carol and Cynthia just did, so that they'll understand the scope of the problem that we're trying to deal with.
I think one of the things that needs to be understood is that if we get the money and pay it to do the final pieces that weren't done in the first place, what we're gonna do is free up a huge amount of staff time. The long-term saving on that
Exactly.
is going to be the money that's saved in staff time.
And like that saying goes, you know, you don't know what you don't know. When we initially got the software, you know, like Cynthia said, it was just such a huge learning curve switching to a web-based system for managing the 3 buses. We didn't know what we didn't know until we got more into it. They were attending the conferences, we were talking with other users and finding out, you know, geez, we don't know how to do this, or it doesn't seem to do this. And so it's been kind of an evolution of learning as we use the system more and more and expanded.
How long have you had the software?
I think it's going on 5 years now. I wanna say we began using it November of 13. So I think we hit 5 years in November. So five and a half
Is there a
years now.
mechanism for keeping the software current? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Windows automatically updates,
Yeah, it has updates.
and when it gets updated, how does Cynthia and Carol know about this?
Well, Route Match communicates, they send out emails, usually when they're doing an update, they'll do it like in the wee hours of the morning on a Saturday night or whatever, when the system is least likely to be used. So just kind of like with Munis upgrades, you know, we get an email saying that the system will be down for maintenance, and to plan accordingly. And then they'll usually run some kind of a test. So sometimes they'll say, you know, at 5 a.m. on Monday, we'll be running a test if you have an issue when you go to start the system, and if there's any malfunctions, let us know.
But I think you're getting to the point of how do we get trained on the updates,
Well, yeah,
right?
I mean, the release notes are not
Yeah.
inadequate. If you make changes to the way the system works, they have to be told and they have to be trained.
Well, they sync that up with the conferences. Those are the big things that happen at the conferences, is just showing folks the new features from the latest upgrades.
Right.
But it doesn't sound like anybody's been trained at all on the tablet.
No. So,
Yes,
yeah.
this is a much bigger problem than we thought.
Very big problem.
Well, and the tablet is obviously an integral part of the whole system.
Right,
One of the reasons
right.
it's not working is
That's
we're
what
not
I was
using the
thinking,
tablets
yeah.
for crying out loud,
Yeah, when the system initially got installed, the big thing that they were training us, you know, remotely was just the scheduling piece of it, the different modules within, you know, what we were showing you today, how to book the trips, how to make the schedules. We had a little pushback from the drivers at the time, just trying to understand the new schedule layout, let alone going to no paper at all, was, you know, the drivers were like, what, you know, they were just trying to get used to the layout of the schedule, cause again, it looked very different So just
did
getting
the
used to that.
tablets come with the route match in 2013? So it
Yeah,
has been.
and then they upgrade them, Cynthia has to plug them in periodically so that they're all getting updated with the
So
the
for
software.
5 years, they haven't learned how to use the tablets?
No, because it, again, has been the training curve that would be involved in how to best do that, because again, the options we've had has been to do it remotely, and again, the funding that would be involved for those trainings.
So do any of the drivers at the moment know how and use the tablets? Are any of them being used?
We have 2 drivers that have been experimenting with them to see how,
Experimenting.
yeah, bringing them on the road, and just seeing, how accurate it
Yeah.
is with, just getting used to the scrolling and seeing as far as what they're projecting for their times, again, how accurate it is so that,
But
they can see.
It's not really a scientific way of
No.
training.
No, because again, it wouldn't be a training unless we have the route match folks involved.
Is there a website that people can go on to learn how to use the tablet?
Probably not.
Not really, they have, like 1 hour, like Cynthia was saying, the webinars, they have a video library that you can go in and watch a webinar. But those are usually more for people that are already using them and are troubleshooting different user issues and things like that.
Anyway, we need to move along.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on our list here is the financial reports. I'm suggesting that in the interests of time, we only have about a half an hour left. Unless people have, are there specific questions on specific accounts? Do we really need to go account by account? What do you think?
I personally feel that we do this every month.
Yes,
So it is a continuation of the same thing that is.
yes, but do the numbers really, unless, do you want to summarize the accounts for us, Sharon? Do we need to quickly look at all of them?
I guess just my biggest question for you is we did make sure all of the gift account data got plugged into the new format. I just was curious if you folks found that easier to follow. Norma, I know you had pointed out some things last month as far as finding it a little confusing for how the expenses were recorded versus what had come in. So I was hoping by playing with that format, it might resolve that. So I didn't know if you found by having the whole picture with having the gift account all put in that for all 3 quarters for year to date, if that helped make it more clear.
Actually, I have a question regarding the format of all our accounts. Now, is it fair to say that these accounts are then used by whoever's auditing us? In other words, is there a standard accounting type format that we're supposed to be using?
No, this is just for,
This is informational,
right, for you folks,
but
cause
you
all
have
of,
a separate database that has all the raw
in
data.
Munis, correct.
So if, well, whoever audits us, do we get audited?
Yes,
And who does the auditing?
that's all set up through accounting, so,
They don't really need these reports, these are for our entertainment.
correct. Yep.
Entertainment. Anyway,
For our
this is
information.
for our information.
Yeah, these are made
Entertainment
just,
too.
these are just made for you, cause we, like you said, have all of the data through Munis
Yes.
that we use through accounting.
But I have one question, the wish list. Now, I understand, can we just look at the quick, it's
Yep.
it's in where? It's in
That's
the
under the
Revolving
formula,
account.
the formula.
the formula account. Transfer. The reason I ask is, I am not convinced that this is the right place for a wish list.
Well, I wouldn't call it a wish list per se, it's funds that we have,
Part of the problem is that this, once what we discuss at this meeting is available to the senior center population.
Mhm.
And they're gonna look at this and they might misunderstand what we're trying to do here. So it is a wish list. And looking at the list itself, you see things like, is it formula you said, Sandra?
Yes, so again, we have
Formula
funds,
and possible expenditure, go to the possible,
Mm-hmm.
on the top.
Yes, I see it, yeah, it's a tab, here called possible expenditures.
right.
Now, you've got, for instance, technology,
Mhm.
it says computers and computer furniture. I was under the impression that computers are going to be under the umbrella of
Down.
the town. That these would be treated, we're going to be on the network, no more Wi-Fi, we'll have all the security in place. So why is it come in this list as our budget? Or is this going to be a budget going to be shared between us and the town? What is the funding plan?
Well, because we have the funds available now in the formula, if we're able to purchase these through IT and get them, you know, if we can help provide the funding to make this happen sooner, rather than trying to wait to get it to come under a capital line item, hopefully we could move the technology plan along that much quicker.
But if we spend our money, do you think we'll get a reimbursement from the town for that? Unlikely.
But right now, we know it's not in the capital funding budget request, so how long would we want to keep waiting if we in the meantime have money in the formula that we
I was
could-
under the impression that it was in the capital budget.
Right now, no,
When
we
had-
submitted
when we
it,
had- Yeah,
we submitted it, but right now, that's still,
when will that be approved?
well, when we go to town meeting, they
Oh.
they have all of that, but right now, we have, you
If
know.
we were to move things along using our funds, what happens when we go to town meeting? Will it be, that's what you're saying, right? Are we going to get reimbursed?
Or
Because
the-
they will say that
You
you
don't
already
need
got it. You don't need it.
Is this the amount of money that we currently have in the formula, that if we don't spend by the end of June,
We'll lose it.
we'll lose it?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
So unless there's something else that we want, that we could use in place of something that is listed here for that amount, we're just gonna lose that money.
Right.
So how much of that money are we gonna lose?
We'll lose
Well,
everything that's left
Yeah,
that we
according to the
haven't
report here, we've
spent.
got
out of the formula grant.
$41,519, or, no, wait a minute,
Around roughly 30.
yeah.
Which,
So this list
Right.
has about 30, a little over 34 listed. So we wouldn't be able to purchase everything that's on this.
So how much do we actually have available?
Around
And
30.
let's deduct those things from this list that would go over that amount. My thought.
So it shows 38,150,65, and you're saying by the end of the quarter, we'll have 30, is that?
So if you go back a page to,
which tab are you on?
if you go back a page to,
Oh, you wanna scroll up?
let me just see for a second. I'm just looking at,
Where are you on this?
can you scoot over just one more? The,
I don't know, these look like different numbers than what I have.
Right, they do.
This one?
no, where it says staff projection, if you click that one,
I
the
don't
numbers
know.
that I,
I don't have the tabs, I've got the Excel spreadsheet in front of me.
Oh, this is staff protection.
and I don't know why it's not displaying the lights on.
I think I went to sleep.
Yeah, cause my computer's on. But I was gonna say, I could just have you look up there. So this figure, it's in,
30,000, it's in
it's
staff
this- yeah.
protection.
yeah,
This one.
so we would,
30,288, no,
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
30,289.41.
yes.
Just gonna see what's going on with that.
Okay, I see.
So that's what we have as far as,
I see.
cause we already know if we project what we have, the staff, being paid through June 30th, and funds that we know are committed, like
Right.
for the volunteer recognition,
So
luncheon
that
and
is an
gifts.
end of the quarter projection as
Right.
opposed to where we are now. Yeah, got it.
Alright, I'm gonna shut this off.
Probably overheated.
Yeah, it does feel like it's really hot. I was gonna say, I would show that figure, but if you all see it, you have it anyway. So, yeah, we will roughly have a little over 30,000, assuming that there's no staffing changes or any other expenditures other than what we've committed. The big thing being between now and the end of the fiscal year is our volunteer recognition and, the costs associated with that. So what we've put together here, and again, Ken has prepared a handout with, again, some estimates as far as some things that could be purchased with these funds.
So do we have to have this money spent by the end of which quarter? We've already fiscal, what quarter of?
It has to be committed, so the state allows you until September 30th to actually spend the money. But they wanna see that it's been, basically ordered or committed by June 30th. So, purchase orders have to be listed, you have to prove to the state that by June 30th, all the money was spoken for, even if you haven't spent it. So, for example, say we did want to spend $5,000 to have the root match folks come out. They wouldn't have to come out by June 30th, but we'd have to have a contract signed by them that they're coming out in July or August. But by September 30th, it would all have to be spent. So we do have, Mary Thompson has to sign off on a report for the state to verify that this money has been spent and this is how it was spent. But again, June 30th is the drop dead date as far as having it committed. But September 30th is when it has to physically be gone, and then, again, accounting has to verify that.
Well, we still don't know what's happening with the computers. Whether if we were to commit that money and spend it, then are we going to get reimbursed by the town? We don't know that yet, do we?
I would think not,
Well,
it's-
at what point would we know that? Because if we didn't even commit to spending for the public computers, it would bring us down to the amount of money we need. And if we thought that, if we found out by
Well,
the
town
next
meetings in a couple,
fiscal year that they weren't gonna give it to us, could we then add it to our formula? The amount we're spending on our formula, if you follow what I'm, take it out of formula, the next fiscal formula, if we're not gonna get it from the town.
yeah, I'm not sure, I think I would have to check with accounting on that, or maybe even the state. I'm not sure how that would work, but I'm sure other communities have run into that too with some of the bigger ticket items. Cause obviously we're not the only community that has asked for capital funding for the town that may or may not come through. So yeah, I could check on that and see how that would work.
Because rather than going through every other little thing, I mean, it's the public computer bit that would really bring
And
the
I think
amount down. And
that's,
that's what we're,
and I think that's the thing we'd be most
Right.
concerned with if it doesn't get funded through the capital funding, that we probably want to, again, not hold up.
well,
The
how,
technology
if
goals.
it doesn't, how soon could we put it under the amount that we'll be getting for next? See, this is this year's fiscal.
Correct.
Next year's fiscal starts in July.
Right.
So once we found out that we really weren't gonna get it reimbursed from the town, I mean, July's not that far off.
Right.
Once we found out that, why couldn't we put it down as one of our expenses under next year's formula?
You could.
Because it certainly sounds like we probably always have some kind of a significant amount at the, just before June 30th. So I'm really not putting it off that long.
See, associated with this, there's also the expenditure related to maintenance and upgrades and all this kind of stuff. That's why I was really concerned to see about this here, because once we buy it, it'll become just like the computers that are sitting out there.
And they will not be
It should
attached
be
to.
under the umbrella
Yeah.
of the media center.
Yeah.
It should be under John Covey's supervision, or Mark Saris, I don't know how the hierarchy is.
Mark is like, no.
He's sitting here.
I don't work for them.
Somebody who maintains the computers for this town should also maintain the computers. They should be under the same umbrella, the same software, the virus scan, the virus protection, the user protection way, it cleans out everything somebody logs out, that thing that you have in the library? No? Whatever it is, I hope that it'll be the same as the town computers.
I understood that the town was gonna take that
Yeah.
over.
Yes.
Is it,
Is
so,
that true? I mean,
I
this leads us to believe that we're going to take over.
right,
Yeah.
this looks like we're gonna be in
That's
charge
my
of that.
only
All right, so
concern.
these are possible expenditures,
Right.
right? They're not definite,
Yeah,
and
right,
we need to
right.
look at the
It's-
whole list and
that's
see
true.
where we want to, if we wanna wait for if we feel like we need to get those computers in here right away, then this might be the way to go. If we decide that we can wait a little while, we need to look at the other things.
Well, and I think Norma brings up a good point, that we kind of have, it kind of creates a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C. Our plan A is the capital budget, our plan B is this, or our plan C could be next year's formula, so that hopefully the latest we would have to worry about would be like September. Because if the capital fell through, we'd have this year's formula to fall back on, or the July 1st
Yeah,
FY
just put
'20
it
that
into
would be
the next
starting. As far as just, the things you're talking about are, like you said, the operational and the maintenance. This would be just the actual capital expenditure, the physical purchase. But as far as how they be maintained and all of that, I believe that would all be what we had talked about with John Covey.
Well, see, the thing is that if we're buying it through the town and we get the town's price for the computers and all the support stuff that comes with it, that the town buys, we would not get if we went out and bought it ourselves, would we?
Oh, we wouldn't, if we have this figure go towards the computers, we would still have IT ordering them
Okay.
and using their contracts. We wouldn't be doing it, on our own.
We just transfer the funds, okay.
Right,
Now, is that true of the video monitoring system too?
yep,
Would be in the same way?
Right.
Because, the temptation is to go out and buy something for ourselves, but in fact, I think when we spoke to Stephen.
Stephen Rocco.
He said that they wanted infrared cameras outside, they
Yeah.
wanted a certain resolution, all that kind of stuff, standardized for all the municipal buildings. And, if we go out and do it ourselves, we run into the same problem with getting the right equipment and maintaining it.
Right, yeah, no, this in no way would be doing it, in isolation or doing it on our own. This
Okay.
would just be providing the funds for, again, the actual equipment.
What is this weight set for main hall?
That's something that Dr. C has found in teaching his men's class. And if you recall, something we found in the survey, that a lot of people were interested in strength training or being able to use weights. One of the things that, again, Ken was very helpful in this area, what they had in Natick was a portable weight set. It was on wheels, so it could be wheeled to, say if we had it here, it could be stored in the closet and then wheeled to the bigger side of the main hall or side A, or even the craft room if a smaller group was meeting in there. And they're just, 1 to 5 pound weights in sets. I think it holds like 20 sets for people to use for a class. So Ken priced that out, and that's about what they run for both the weights as well as the portable cart.
Should we be going down this list and kind of making some decisions as to what should be our priorities
Make
at
some
any rate?
comments at least.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think we need to do that, but not at this meeting.
Or when, we have 1 month to do that,
I
right?
was just gonna say, we have to know these figures by next month's meeting.
We have to have a commitment to spend
Because
this
by the
money.
end of June, by the end of next month,
Right,
if we haven't committed to things, this money's gonna go away.
and Sharon said we need actually to have contracts in place by June 30th.
Right, right, the state would be looking for, again, it wouldn't have to be spent by June 30th, but the state
But
would
we
be
need to
looking for,
formally
it'd
have-
have to be accounted for.
Alright, so,
Yeah,
Well, some of these things don't need that much discussion, just da-da-da-da, you know?
right,
And again, a lot of these are just estimates, again, IT might be able to get them even less, or, other town, these are just, similar to like the computer desk, these are just estimates that, Ken was able to put
Right,
together.
so at least if we had the exact amounts for next month's meeting, we'd really know money-wise what we're
Next
talking
month's
about.
meeting is June, right? And
That's why I'm saying that.
Yes,
the
I
fiscal year
understand.
ends at the end of that month.
we need to have, so,
what is an FOB system for building?
That is a replacement of keys, so it's where you just kind of have like a scan card or a badge that would unlock the door, and that was something that Steve Rocco said that they're, and IT had been working with them on that too. They basically say to fob all the doors so that eventually it's a keyless system and people are only able to come in the building at certain times. So you could have a key fob, but you're not authorized to come in the building after hours or something like that. And that was something that we were talking about when we had them meet with us and we went through the walkthrough for the back doors of the building, to and from the kitchen, in this hallway here, that where the front desk isn't able to really maintain those doors or supervise them, that those might be ideal doors to have fobbed in lieu of keys. So that's what that was.
Fobs can also determine which doors you can open.
Yes, yeah.
So that during the day, people wouldn't be able to just automatically come in through the side door?
That's what Steve Rocco
Well,
had recommended
we should,
when,
that's part of the security plan that
Yeah,
we need to
right,
work out
right.
with Steve. But,
We're bouncing around, it seems to me we ought to just kind of go down the list here. Some of
Right,
these
right,
things can be
right, right.
dismissed quickly and others maybe not, but,
but should we do it, I don't think we should do it today, right, this meeting.
well, like I'm saying, when?
I think people should go, and, I only really looked at this carefully, not a few days ago. And I think that maybe, I didn't realize the significance of this particular list, so maybe we need a little bit of time to go through it. Let me put it this way, let's do it another way. Let's finish the agenda and come back to this at the end.
Okay.
If not, we'll give ourselves an action item to go and get comments back to.
Go for it.
Okay, let's do that. Now, the only other question I had was from Louise, who said that on the formula grant, she wanted to know what did we start out with?
that's the figure right on. Actually, if you back up to where the,
This quarter one?
no, where I have the projections, that's probably the easiest spot to just see it. So it was
Projections.
$79,056, yeah, is what the award was for.
Where is it?
If you just back up to what the projections are
Back
for
up
the
to
staff,
July and you have it.
staff.
Staff.
Yep, so if you, right there, you gotta just widen that column so you can see it, that's why you're not getting it. But yeah, so the total amount of the award was $79,056, there, you got it.
All right,
So that might have been happening on her computer too, so
Yeah.
that might have been why she wasn't seeing that figure.
and then that's about it. So we're not going to go any further, so we can move on to the the director's action items report.
Okay. And real quickly, that first item with the signage, hopefully you saw when you came in.
Excuse me?
Yep.
I thought you were going to give us a summary review, the director's action item status report. You wanted to do some kind of introductory something or other?
Well, the big thing is, I sat down with Louise and Shashi. This was a report that they thought might be helpful to kind of just track the different items that we discuss each month, to hopefully, rather than itemizing everything on the agenda, to just have a separate action item report. So we went through it further and tried to group things again with our strategic planning items and things that we've been discussing. So this particular report is broken down by things that contribute to the welcoming atmosphere that we've been working on creating, again, the technology, transportation issues, safety and security, and so the different items that we've been talking about here. So basically I've just tried to add what the updates are on each of these items for this month, and that way we can track every month for each meeting. So it'll be a quick place to just refer back to if anybody needs to see where we left off on an item. So with that being said, for this month, the first item is now completed, so we can take that off. So the signage has all been updated. We got the new bracket in, so all the signs are hung. They're both the wording's on both sides, so hopefully if you didn't get to see them,
Speaking of
check it out.
signage, got a quick question.
Sure.
Somebody asked me if we are compliant with, with Braille. Do we need to have Braille signs on the doors?
Yep, we do. We have the
And
ADA.
we have them all, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question, but yeah, we do have the ADA compliant Braille signs
Okay.
in front of each of the doors. I guess the other big thing we were talking about last month that we assigned a date to was the organ. So we still haven't heard back from the leads we've put out there, so if it doesn't come together by June 1st, one way or another, the organ will depart from us. So
Either in one piece or many.
correct. So but hopefully my comments are pretty straightforward, so I don't know if anybody had any questions on anything in particular. I did just want to expand a little bit on the safety and security and that we had talked about with Southgate. I did reach out to Southgate, and I just had a little note here, but I'll explain it further. The Southgate has a new administrator. He's only been on board a few weeks. So he and I chatted, and we have a plan to get together. They actually have a maintenance director that oversees their evacuation plan. So he said that, he'd be happy to share what they did come up with at Southgate working with the fire department, but for the most part, they have state regulations that they have to comply with as far as evacuation measures. And he said that because of the ambulatory status of many of the people at their facility, they actually very rarely would be evacuating everybody all at once. They have a plan to evacuate people to one side of the building versus another. And he said that actually might be something that we might want to tailor for here as well, depending on what the nature of the emergency was, just maybe shepherding everybody down to the main hall, for example, or, depending on the weather or whatever, you may not want everybody outside, and particularly if you have emergency vehicles and so on. He said in their case, again, with their memory unit, they don't want people wandering off during an emergency, so they have very specific things in place that very rarely would include having everybody exit the building. But again, those are things that we'll be able to review when we get the copy of their report. So I still have yet to get a copy of what the library might have in place. That might be more appropriate, where we're not residential like Southgate, as far as if there was an emergency, what we would do. Southgate said that actually the most intensive part of their plan is how to help people that need to notify someone that they need to be picked up, or he said that's something that you'd probably actually have to work out if you had people that God forbid if there was an emergency and you have some people that all had to be taken to a hospital at once, how would you notify multiple people at the same time? So he said those are types of things that they have in their emergency and disaster planning is, to think about that and
Question.
have some type of plan in place if that
How do
was
they
to happen.
handle walkers and wheelchairs for an evacuation?
Well, that's why he said that they really would try not to have everybody leave the building, but rather go to one section of the building or another.
But people with walkers and wheelchairs would have to move themselves somehow, as fast as they can, to some part of the building.
Or with staff,
Or with staff
they-
helping.
Yeah, cause they have obviously a very different type of staff
Right.
to resident
But
ratio.
that is something that we're gonna have to deal with, because we don't have that kind of staff. All right.
And I think, again, that's where we fall
So
back to
your
what we talked
meeting
about
with
with
them
group
is
leaders.
This month or next month?
Probably by the end of the month, based on what, the administrator said. His name is Dave Charbonneau, so he said
We'll
he'd
see an
be,
update to that here,
Yeah.
in next month's report, okay.
correct.
Yeah, it raises questions that I hadn't thought of before,
Yeah,
really, and
it was
different
a very
ideas, yeah.
interesting conversation.
Yeah, so that.
We might
that's-
even want to have him come in, when we have the copy of it, just to kind of explain some of their thought processes, and again, some of the things that the state has them consider and think about. So it was a very interesting discussion.
Okay.
So any other
Um,
questions or things on this report?
See, there's so many things here that are kind of in process.
Yes.
That for instance, the secure status security, apply formula funds to provide opportunity to expedite. I'm not sure what that means.
Well, basically, I had put here, that if we have the funds in the formula, then again, it ties back to what we were just discussing with the status of, the potential for capital funding, being able to move those things along if we're able to use formula funds for them instead.
Okay. But as far as the security cameras themselves, we're just going to make the funds available, but this is, I don't know that, do you know if the town has specifications for what they're gonna
Well, they,
install?
they have, security cameras, so I would assume they'd want the same type, so everything is similar.
So we have, those are the prices that we're putting down in our wish list.
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
Place a greeter. See, welcoming atmosphere, okay?
And
Yeah, keep going.
included in what Ken passed out to you, in addition to computer
Yes,
desk stations,
there is
there's some
a
ideas for a greeter
greeter's chair.
station, what it could look like,
Yeah.
based on what we've seen at some other senior centers. Again, just something that would be
Now, one of the
welcoming.
things is for the greeters, I don't know if you wanna talk about greeters here or as part of our action plan, because one of the things is to make a more friendly, welcoming environment, is training the greeters. How are we gonna do that?
Well, that's one of the things that, again, I think Ken would be working on as part of the job description and then following
Oh,
up
yes,
with how
the
that,
job
the training would be happening.
Yes, okay.
As far as the physical, like greeter station, where would we, like that to be placed, what do we want it to look like? There's, again, some examples here, and they're really not too costly, and I think they would look nice.
Now, the fire evacuation, when have you scheduled anything with the fire department?
No, not yet, I did reach out to the chief, so we are waiting to set that
So
up,
that needs to be, this has to be updated, right?
yes.
That you have contacted the chief of fire department and they haven't scheduled a walkthrough here yet.
No, not
Okay.
yet.
I have no further questions unless anybody else has about this report. No? Okay, we'll check that one off. Director, program service activity updates. Transportation, statistics and updates, outreach. What, do you have some material you want to talk about that?
If you want to just take a quick look at the outreach report, I think just very similar to what we've seen in the previous months, with the stats running very high for Walter in comparison to the, what it looked like in April of 2018 and April of 2017. Again, things just continue to remain steady for him. Let me just pull up. The email communication hit a new high in April, but the phone calls are remaining stable. So it's interesting that the amount of phone calls he receives, that's kind of plateaued, but that email communication just continues to grow and grow, which I think, we had, when we discussed that before, that was, one reason why I thought it was definitely good that we tracked that. So, as you can see in my notes here, the total contacts has had the most dramatic increase throughout FY19. And Walter also just wanted to say that he really thought his April stats would have been even higher. But unfortunately he had the flu and was out 5 days. So, we counted the days he would have worked throughout April, and because he works 3 days a week, it would have been 13 days. So you figure working 8 of the 13 days, these figures are considerable when you figure that, roughly a third of the days that he would have normally worked, he wasn't able to. So, so he thought that they would have been even higher.
So the bottom line is, do you think from this that outreach is adequately funded for now?
No, I think it goes back to our strategic planning goal that we definitely need
Yes.
to continue to grow to meet that demand. Again, I think Walter does an awesome job of really maximizing what he can, but as we've said, looking towards the future and over the length of the strategic plan, what do we want, the strategic goals to be for outreach in the next 5 years, and it will definitely be one of our priorities.
We brought that up in front of the finance committee.
Yeah, we did, that's why I was curious.
So we planted the seed.
Yes, when we met with the finance committee, we brought up the issue of outreach and raising it to almost to a municipal level, and I don't know that we got very far with that.
But I think they recognized it.
Yes, they acknowledge that the problem exists, but
And they were also impressed, I felt, with the need
yes,
for more hours,
So one of the things, like Kristen said, as far as having us present the strategic plan to the Board of Selectmen, maybe one of the things we'll have to talk about is, do we want to do some type of PowerPoint? Do we want to include some certain statistics, different findings from the survey, or other things like that to kind of hopefully hit home our points that are priorities in the strategic plan and how that connects with our statistics and so on. Because I think outreach will definitely be
Yes.
one of the big things that we'll want to stress upon.
all right, the dementia-friendly grant program, any updates on that?
We actually have a few different things. Tomorrow, we're gonna be doing a panel. I know I mentioned that briefly at last month's meeting. But tomorrow we'll be doing a panel here with several members of our dementia action team. We kinda did like a little dry run a couple of weeks ago. So some of the dementia action folks are gonna be in the audience. We don't know how many folks we'll have. But they'll be asking very specific questions that we want to know, have people answer regarding caregiver issues, or some of the other key points that we want to help educate the community on. Then we also brainstormed a year-long program of different topics we want to record and be able to have showing on Shrewsbury Media Connection throughout the year. So basically tomorrow will just be a good, capstone or summary of all the different topics we want to cover in over the course of the next year with dementia education, and again, in hopes of becoming a dementia-friendly community. Walter and I attended one of the quarterly statewide dementia workshops at the Framingham Senior Center a couple of weeks ago, and it was really good to hear what some of the other communities were doing. Again, gave us a lot of ideas. And when the Friends had their meeting yesterday, we kicked around the idea of doing some things during the farmers market, because we will have those evenings, the senior center will be open for folks during the farmers market, that might be a good opportunity to do an education, like the Walk in Their Shoes program that exists, to have people kind of experience some of the changes that happen with people with dementia. That might be a good multi-generational activity for kids to learn about that and get to have that experience. So hopefully we'll be able to do some things, again, in conjunction with, between the COA and the Friends in those efforts. So some good things cooking. Speaking of cooking, do you want me to jump into the Friends cookbook
The
real
Memory
quick?
Lane Cafe, I mean,
Oh, yeah, well, we're on the topic of dementia.
Moving along, Mary said some of the snowbirds that were early participants are coming back again, so she's expecting a little bump, but they had a harpist this past month, and that drew apparently a lot of people who were just here otherwise, and to hear that went over very well.
That was really good.
That was wonderful.
And they're gonna be potting some plants this week, and I think they've got a magician coming pretty soon. I love magicians, so go up there. But yeah, no, it's moving along, it's doing well.
Fun stuff.
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, so just jumping down to the Friends real quick, as I said, I was at their meeting yesterday. They've got some good things that they have planning, and I'll do a quick little, you know,
Yes.
a little TV spot here, that we do have their Cooking for Two or More cookbook for sale. So the Friends have a lot of great things that have been submitted in all different categories, and it's really well done. It really came out beautiful, so I'll pass that around. So these are on sale for $10. Speaking of the farmers market, the Friends will be selling these continuously throughout the farmers market.
I was
And,
impressed just with the looks of it even, it's a
Yeah.
Looks really
hardcover
nice.
and it's
Yeah.
very attractive, yeah.
So
These are
hopefully-
$10.
Yep.
And it's available from your office.
Well, the front desk, they
Front
have
desk.
them over at the front desk, and again, the Friends are coming up with different ideas to get them out in the community. So hopefully people will be buying them and doing some great cooking.
Good. Now, moving along, the Building Oversight Committee. Now, the Building Oversight Committee in their last report made certain requests, which I feel should have been on your action items list. They're not, are they?
No, but
They're
that's a
not.
good point, I can add them for
The-
next
The
month.
grab bars in the bathrooms, there was a few other things that they wanted. I think they need to be added to this list.
Yeah, cause I did talk to Keith Baldinger about them, so I can
The toilet seat heights.
yeah, so I can add that to the report. Basically, he's looking into the toilet seat heights, and we do have a grab bar that
On the
they
low
installed, but being able to have them on either
Either
side.
side, yes.
So he's looking into that, and the other thing was it tied into the technology item, because the Building Oversight Committee had recommended the idea of the cameras, that was the other request.
And the porch. The porch at the back, the patio at the back,
Oh,
the
yeah,
grab bars
The grab bars on the ramp,
on the ramp.
yeah, for that step to have,
yeah, those
Step
things should
down.
be on this list.
okay, I'll add them on for next month. Okay,
But before we go any further, actually Louise had this question. She said, we were supposed to get grant money from the Department of Transportation and the Housing Authority. That they're supposed to pay us for something. And I know that this has come up in previous meetings, and do you know where we are with that?
well, as I mentioned last month, the town manager did sign off on the latest paperwork that the DOT needed for both fiscal years, so we're still waiting for that money to come in, but he's done all the paperwork that he needs to do, for the DOT money.
Could you add that to your list?
Yeah, I could do that
Okay.
cause I think we already have a transportation section, so.
Do we? Yes.
Yep. So I
Develop, yeah, we have an item here to address the route match stuff, but, yeah, but we don't have an item for getting the funding that's, should have been coming to us, because as you can see, that from the transportation account is going down and down and down.
Right.
And we need to get that replenished.
And the housing authority, I had mentioned last month that they were meeting, they had met the day before our meeting, and we're going over that memorandum of understanding, the MOU. So Kelly Bergeron from the housing authority and I are getting together tomorrow to go over those things, cause her board meeting will be next Tuesday, cause they meet the second Tuesday of the month, so the way this month falls, they'll be meeting next Tuesday. So she and I are getting together tomorrow morning to hopefully finally get that wrapped up.
Question about the instruction manual for the new audiovisual system. I know you said Ken is working on it, but when do we get a draft?
Well, we have the gentleman, we haven't pinned him down for a date yet, but Rick Ford, who installed the system, we're having him come back out to do a training with us.
Do we have a date?
No, not yet. Susan's husband, Preston, is gonna be there's 4 of the gentlemen from the men's group that wanna get trained in addition to the staff, because right now, folks that speak at the men's group typically have AV needs, and we wanna, the men's group wants to have some of their own folks in the group trained on it so that they can troubleshoot when they have a speaker that
Can
is
we
doing a
have
problem.
some other people from other
Sure.
groups also, because
Yeah.
if only the men's group know it, then, and another group wants to present it, I think we could have a few other people from
Yeah.
another group come and train with it.
Yeah, because one of the things, again, a lot of the things we don't know until we get in and use the system, that there's an issue. But we had an issue, Cliff found the hard way with the Memory Cafe. We wanted to be able to use we were showing the movie, but we also we have 2 DVD players. We should be able to show things on both sides of the main hall at the same time. And we were trying to do that, so Cliff had a DVD to play for the Memory Cafe that we were gonna be doing on side A. We were showing the movie on side B, and we couldn't get it to work. So Ken unfortunately had to lug this in here, and we were able to show what Cliff had put together in here, but it should have worked on side A. So we need to have Rick come back and figure out why that didn't work the way it was supposed to.
Yeah, we have 2 DVD players, we only use one at a time, so.
Yeah, so again, something's wrong there
One, two.
with the way it's programmed or whatever, so,
That again is the reason for needing that manual, operator's manual, and make sure it's set up correctly.
yeah. So I can add that to the
Yes,
list
please
too.
do.
Okay.
Okay, now, moving right along, new business. Revised policy and procedure booklet and the revised instructor facilitator group leader packet. Where are we with that? I mean, we have them here. I don't think anybody has provided any comments. Anybody looked at them? Where do we send?
I think the last time we talked about it, we were talking about having a separate section or a separate policy on how to be welcoming. And perhaps having a separate, trying to think of the verbiage we came up with, but about acceptable behavior or what's expected as far as, how someone acts and how to respond if,
Yes. So those things have to be added. And
so I think we were talking about perhaps working on if my memory serves me correctly, working on that type of draft first. And then tying it into the policy and procedure section, saying refer to,
Do you have a projected date for that? I mean, it should be in here.
well, I think you folks had wanted to, kick around some language or ideas as far as what that could look like.
Can't remember.
Neither can
I
I.
mean, are we going to have a separate meeting? Maybe I should go to the front. No. Do we need to have a separate meeting? I mean, is the board willing to go look at and provide comments, provide additions, or draft of what you think needs to be there? Any consensus on this? Anybody who's awake?
I think if we are passing this, then I definitely think we need to have a better idea about what we are passing.
No, that's my point. What she's saying is, in the last meeting, I brought up the idea that we need to have this business but being friendly and welcoming to the new members, to the group leaders. And in general, to be courteous to other people, that all that stuff needs to be in the manual. But the words are not there, yeah, somebody has to sit down and write something up.
Maybe
Norma
that's,
is the wordy person.
I'm sorry?
I think Norma is the wordy person.
Words?
I didn't hear my name.
I mean, if the board does wanna have a separate meeting, maybe it would make sense to have it done in conjunction with the Friends, because the Friends have to redo their section as well. And, where they're trying to, update their bylaws, and maybe it would be a good thing to do jointly between the two boards, the Friends Board and the COA Board.
When would we do that? I mean, who's gonna facilitate, who's here from the Friends? Is Susan here in the Friends committee, representing Friends? No?
I'm not on the board for the Friends.
When is the Friends Board meeting? That's
The first Tuesday,
Yeah.
first Tuesday of the month, so they just met yesterday.
So, who's gonna facilitate this meeting? Are you gonna do that? Can you do that for us?
Sure.
To specifically for the board to meet with the Friends Board and come up with an improvement, changes to the procedures? Yes?
Yeah.
You can do that for us? Right?
Yeah, I can check with Dr. C, because he's the president of the Friends, and see. I know yesterday, one of the things that their board agreed on was to meet through the summer, because they just felt that they had a lot of things that they wanted to work on. Typically, they don't meet after their June meeting until September, but Dr. C said that because they were gonna be working through the summer with the farmers market evenings and selling the cookbook, and they're gonna continue to meet as a board too, to continue to work on some of these things. So it fits in with what they said yesterday too.
Okay,
I have a comment.
go ahead.
I seem to remember that this new person, Ken Colin, was going to put together a training document that he was gonna share with us.
A volunteer program.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and did that happen
Volunteer
yet?
handbook.
Yeah.
He's working on that, so what we have, that's one of his goals to complete. We kinda did goals for his first 100 days.
Right,
So
right.
that's one of the things he's been working on.
Cause I remember that was one of the things, and then that he was gonna sit down with us and tell us how he was gonna train the leaders of each group. Do you remember that? Yeah,
Yeah, vaguely.
yeah.
So maybe that's something we'd want to, because this would be a big part of it.
This has to be updated, this document has to be updated to reflect that user-friendly attitude that we're supposed to have. But that is what I was hoping we'd do with the Friends.
Yeah.
But Ken needs to be involved in that too, is what you're saying, right?
Yes, yeah, because, and that would be part of this
Yes.
package too.
Yes, it
Yes.
would.
And he also indicated that he knew a lot of senior center friendly things to do that he was gonna put
He
into it.
was going to get something from the place he had worked before,
Right.
Yeah.
from May,
Right.
I think.
Yeah, so that would be important to have that in here too.
Right.
Alright, so I'll see if I can get some dates so we can try to all get together.
Yes.
And then, cause I think our goal was to try to have this finalized for July 1st so that we could start rolling it out to the group leaders and have, everybody having it by September. Cause some of the groups do take a summer hiatus, but that way, by September, everybody would have it and, we'd be taking it from there.
And did he get a list of all the group leaders yet? He was gonna gather a list of all the group leaders, and then I was going to contact them to see what time their programs actually run, so that we could update the calendar.
Yeah, I can double check with him on that. I know that was one of the things that he was working on for the upcoming volunteer recognition, cause he wanted to make sure he invited all the leaders, so.
Oh, good,
I'll see where he
alright,
is on that.
thank you.
Okay.
All right. The next item is the multi-generational container and raised garden program. What is this? What's this? Is this a new item? It's a new business?
Yes, was that something,
Is that in conjunction with the garden club? No. It's
No,
here, back here.
I'm trying to think if Louise had forwarded that email to everybody. Louise had received an email from Missy Hollenbeck in regard to an initiative that kind of coincides with the farmer's market about getting some multi-generational raised garden boxes. And if we would be willing to have them here. Louise thought it would be a good idea, but she wanted to see if the board was in agreement. And then we can check with public buildings as to where the best location for them would be. We said probably off the patio would make the most sense, so that it would be, again, ADA accessible, and there's a path there.
So this is to be maintained by the individual seniors.
That was the gist of the email as far as
I
what they
still
would
don't
be.
understand, what is a multi-generational container?
Basically, it's like
Bury everybody inside.
It's a
Yeah.
garden.
What's it
It's a
for? I mean,
garden.
what does it contain?
The idea is to.
How do you use it? I have no idea.
It's just a raised garden there.
It's a raised garden, that's all. But the idea is to have young people and old people together,
Garden.
multi-generational.
Well, I understand what the word multi-generational
Yeah,
is,
that's all it
but I
is.
don't know.
It's
what
just
it
another
is.
activity,
Yeah.
gardening activity, that's all.
Oh, it's all for gardening
Yeah.
activities.
It raised beds,
Just
so it's like a,
So that you're
Multi-generational.
not bending over.
Yeah,
Oh, they're not two separate things.
no.
I thought I thought the multi-generational container was one thing and the raised garden was another thing. Okay.
Yes, and I was just wondering if the dementia program would be involved in this too? No. I know there are
probably-
programs for them.
Probably not, it's a little more intensive
Yeah,
Right.
right,
terms
yeah.
of
Yeah.
involvement than what that.
Because I think I've read somewhere that that's something that's helpful to dementia. I'm sorry? To do something with the
Well,
hands.
it would need more
I know.
continual oversight in a different manner.
That's true.
They're going to plant a potted plant, and
Right, and
and
that's,
a number of the people who come
might take
will
it home.
need their care
Mhm.
partner to help
And
them
that's
do
different.
that,
Yeah.
Right.
you know.
That's
The-
different.
I think maintaining a garden is beyond the
Yeah,
clientele.
yeah,
Okay.
entirely.
It's something that a care partner may choose to do with the person, that they
Yeah.
could come and tend to something.
Right.
So the opportunity is there
Yeah.
if they chose.
Have we identified a group leader for this activity?
I think Missy is coordinating that.
So this is entirely done through the Friends?
Where is it gonna be?
They
No,
haven't decided.
Yeah.
Well, they haven't decided.
my understanding is she's just asking for our blessing to have
Correct.
it here.
Yep.
But
Okay.
we wouldn't be running it.
Okay.
Yeah, so again, Louise just thought it would be good for everyone to just be on the same page and in the loop as far as what was being discussed.
Because I have not seen this before, and I don't know what kind of communication Louise got from Missy. So,
So instead of buying at the farmer's market, you'll go to the raised garden for your.
Grow your own, that's right.
Grow your own.
Pick your own radishes.
all right,
Well, I would move that we give a blessing to this, I think that's a
Yes.
good thing.
I think that's,
I think it's a great.
I don't think it's a, so long as we don't have to do the work,
Yeah.
we're happy. Any other items that we need to talk about?
I don't know, we need to take a vote on that, just to be sure that we're clear that it's okay.
Well, I don't know.
Sure, we can take a
I
vote.
have to know how big it is, where it's gonna be, I really don't know that much about it.
Well, we could tell them that we would like specifics.
You're right.
You know, the size of the containers, who's going to be leading it, how many people, what do you,
Who's going to be maintaining it?
right,
Yeah,
especially
exactly.
maintaining
Yeah,
it.
right. And-
And
Because
who gets to
overgrown
pick
with
the
weeds
speed?
is not conducive.
Yeah, right.
Right, and if you're coming in only once in a week or once in 2 weeks, then you're busy taking out the weeds before and your plant is not
So-
there.
Really, yeah.
You need a little more specifics on this.
So our response would be, we are
Interested?
we're amenable to the concept, but we're not going to vote on it until we know the particulars. Make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
So that is, somebody has to respond back to that.
Okay.
You'll send somebody an email if possible.
Yeah, I think the next step would be for public buildings to, you know, hash out all those
See,
details
That's a
anyway.
lot of detail to be worked out, you're right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of detail, the location is important, safety is important, all those things.
I think the issue and the reason that Missy's raised it and suggested that it be here is because it would involve more than just seniors. So is that a good or bad thing? I think that's the stage that we're at this point. And
Right,
I think
I don't
that's a
even
good
know-
thing.
I don't even know where the water supply outside would be from. Do you have?
From heaven.
Is the priest speaking?
It rains.
I mean, are there faucets all around?
Yeah, somebody has to keep watering it every day.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, that would be a good question for public buildings. I know there's electrical outlets around the building.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I don't know about spigots if they.
No, I personally haven't seen any, but I haven't been looking for them either.
Yeah, right. I'm sure they're there.
Are
Every
you
building's
positive?
got, yeah, every building's got some.
Okay. Very good.
So that's a consensus, right, that we agree with this in principle, but we won't vote on it until we get the specifics.
I think that's
Leave it at that for now. I think we've covered all the items, unless we can go back to the
Can I
funding.
bring one?
Go ahead.
Just putting just before the board, we are all of us are seniors here, all of us have some problem or the other. And if some medical emergency happens to a person, we often have no idea what the medical emergency is, what medications the patient is taking. Would be a good idea if everybody would carry a little bit of slip with their high blood pressure, diabetes, and a list of medication in their purse or in themselves,
You wanna see mine?
so that if whoever is going to attend to that person, it is easier for them to identify what the problem is, so at least we can take care of the patient or the problem that they're having, rather than trying to guess what is happening. We had this incident a couple of weeks ago, and everybody was guessing what could be the problem, because we couldn't find anything on the person.
See,
And
that
even
is-
make people aware of the fact that I know you can on iPhones, but I'm sure you can on Android phones as well. Enter that kind of information in
Your
your
data-
phone,
your data-
which is available even from the lock screen. So if you
Yes.
can't open the phone up, you can still get a person's medical data off, but they've gotta put it in.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we
One
have.
of the things, excuse me, one of the things that I had talked about is in the volunteer handbook, that to maintain, it's right now that kind of next, whom to contact in an emergency, all that kind of stuff, all your medical conditions, it's optional.
Right.
And I'm saying it should be mandatory.
Right.
And it should be kept in the office somewhere, secure location, because of HIPAA laws regarding privacy. So we can't make that, we cannot require people to do that because of privacy concerns.
but they can carry it on their person.
Right, I think
But,
in
excuse me,
the newsletter.
I think that perhaps we should have something in the newsletter recommending that people do that.
Right.
But I don't think we can make people do that.
No, I don't think we can suggest it. We can suggest it because it makes it much easier for the caregiver.
But people who come to the senior center to take part in an activity need to have that kind of information in a secure place. In the office, somebody has a problem when they're doing their whatever activity that they're doing, then we know what to do, whom to contact, what to do, what not to do.
But it should not be so secure that you cannot get access
Oh,
to it.
no. Only certain designated people in the office will have access to it. And the public will not. It has to be a combination lock of some kind that you can access this kind of information.
Oh, I think that carrying it on your person would be all right, but I don't think that we should have a database of everybody's
No, it's
medical
not a database,
condition.
a hand
At the
index card.
senior center.
An index card in the office for everybody who participates in an activity.
I don't think so, I think that's a private information, and if you want,
Yes,
if
but
they
if
wanna,
somebody collapses and you don't know then whom to contact, what do?
you call 911.
Then that has to be the procedure.
You
Right.
don't go looking
Right,
I mean, we don't even know
up a
if,
database.
we
of
should
their-
be.
But it's
But-
okay if they carry it on their person.
But by the time the 911 comes here, what have you done? If the person is hypoglycemic, if I knew that she was hypoglycemic, I would have given her a little bit of sugar. If I knew she was hyperglycemic, I would know what to do. If I knew that she has a history of such and such thing, I would have a little bit of an idea how to go about it.
Well, you said to carry it in their purse or their wallet, I
Right.
think that's a great idea.
Yeah, well, I think there should be a little notification in the next month's newsletter. It won't hurt to just say, suggestion,
And-
everyone should.
And we
carry.
have plenty of them, we have the file of life, that the fire department, provides, so we have, if somebody has one but it's expired, we have, plenty of those forms to fill out. And, they actually recommend that you keep 3 of them, one in your car, one on your person, and like one on your fridge, so if, God forbid, something happened at home, that's where, emergency responders look, so.
It doesn't hurt to just write out, I mean, I myself always carry this in my purse. Medications, different problems you have.
So if somebody has chosen to do so for their My Senior Center scan card, we do have a section on that sheet. If they do want to list any, known, medical conditions. So that's in, the My Senior Center database, that if we needed to pull, if God forbid something happened to you right this minute, while we're waiting for 911, we could pull you up in the My Senior Center database and say, oh no, Barbara's hyperglycemic, let's, see if that will help while we're waiting. Susan had a comment.
We can discuss it. Go ahead, Susan.
I would just like to interject that perhaps a middle ground here would be to encourage people who have specific conditions to avail themselves and maybe even ask the friends. I know Dr. C is really good at finding things and finding ways to get in inexpensively these a lot of women wear jewelry. My sister wears a necklace because she takes a blood thinner. My sister-in-law has one because she has a pacemaker. If you have that sort of condition, have something to make people aware how important it is if you have a particular condition. I think, with all due respect, that we wouldn't be expecting to treat anybody, but I think we should, like, what you shouldn't do for someone, or how you might identify, is this person a diabetic whose sugar is low and they're acting like they're drunk, or they're, incoherent for some other reason. If they had such a thing on you kind of know that might be the problem while the ambulance comes.
Right.
Yeah, one of the alert buttons one of the alert, bracelet, all the alert buttons.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
And that would be up to the individual, but I know that some people may find that my sister's is a beautiful necklace, I'm sure she spent a lot of money on it, but you don't need something that beautiful, you know?
But we could even put, or ask somebody when they're updating their My Senior Center form, under that section, they can put, in the event of emergency, my cell phone has my emergency data, or I carry a file of life, or see the bracelet that I'm wearing. They could note that, and again, if God forbid something happened, we could pull somebody up in My Senior Center and say, oh, they've got a medical alert bracelet, or the information's on his phone, and again, all of that helps the emergency personnel.
Question. Would it be possible to have one of the staff members have some training, first responder type training? Do they have anybody here?
Yeah, we're all CPR and ADA certified, or AD. So we all know how to use the defibrillator, we all can do CPR and
And
first
you're
aid.
refreshed every year and all that kind of stuff?
Every 2,
Every 2 years?
yeah.
Yeah, so the thing is that in the event of an emergency, we would come and get one of you,
Yes.
okay? So, I mean, I like the idea of the card, with the information, but if somebody collapses on the floor, where would you be able to find that card?
And would you know the name of the person?
Yeah, it's in the name, you may not know the name of the,
Well, again, that kind of goes back to our group leaders. Hopefully the group leader would know each person in their group at least. And again, can hopefully impress upon them the importance of having a My Senior Center,
it could be somebody having lunch that collapses. What do we do?
Someone in the lobby.
And,
Yeah.
and this happened on a lady who was attending a meeting. And at the end of the meeting,
So we don't have a solution for this yet, do we?
no, we don't, but a suggestion is that if you carry that information with you, it may help.
It's 11:30.
I'm sorry?
It's 11:30.
Actually, it's 11:30.
I'm sorry, what's the question?
It's 11:30.
Yes, 11:35. So we're come to the end of our discussions unless there's anybody else has any. Did you get the last discussion on your
Yes.
minutes? And that, there are a couple of things that, action items that we're gonna
I
add to
did.
the action, you got that, right? Okay, because I feel that the status reported by the director should be part of the minutes.
Okay.
It's my opinion. Anybody? Because we know that's a lot of our discussion here, that document. Anyway, so that it's available to whoever looks at the minutes.
Are we going back to the formula?
Anybody has, well,
I'm gonna need to leave pretty soon.
I'm sorry?
I'm gonna need to leave.
I think maybe the big, it sounds like, I think the key point is for me to find out, again, how that would work with the capital
yes,
funding.
yes.
So maybe the best way to do that is for me to get answers there, and then, I could update everybody via email, and we could always get feedback back that way. And then, in the meantime, you have the opportunity to look over the list and if there's any questions but it sounds like for the most part, there's nothing
But
crazy jumping out at you.
in the meantime, we have to look through that wish list and see what needs to be taken out, what needs to be added. Is that correct? We all need to look at that.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna have to do it next week.
Well, if
Yeah.
it was a number one item next month, so we'd really get to it,
Yes,
we'd have time.
yes.
There's a few more weeks left of the month, but we really have to get to that as one of the,
Can we do that as the first item on the?
oh, that's what I'm
Yes.
saying, in the
That should be the
beginning.
first item on our next meeting.
Yeah,
We'll have
really.
everybody here, hopefully.
I have to go now.
Yeah, I do too.
All right,
Depart?
unless anybody,
I've already been there. I'd like to go again.
shall we adjourn the meeting? Somebody
I
please.
move that
I
we
make
adjourn.
a motion at the
Contest
meeting.
I second that motion.
All right, meeting is adjourned.